Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the UNEP-ILEC International Webinar on taking a major step toward mainstreaming lakes in connection with the 4th Asia-Pacific Water Summit. My name is Rika Okaji, a secretariat of the International Lake Environment Committee, or ILEC. I'll be the MC for this webinar. We extend our appreciation for your presence today. Regarding today's program, we have keynote addresses and panel discussions by honored speakers from around the world. These speakers will address ways to overcome pressing issues on the lake management, and then discuss and propose ways to accelerate these actions regionally, nationally, and globally. Without further ado, let us start our program. I'd like to invite Dr. Kazuhiko Takemoto, the president of ILEC, to greet the audience and the speakers for today. Dr. Takemoto, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the ILEC, I am very delighted to welcome you to this international webinar as a related event of the 4th Asia-Pacific Water Summit. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all the speakers for accepting our invitation to contribute to this webinar. ILEC has worked for sustainable management of the world lakes and other Atlantic waters in close collaboration with a wide range of stakeholders. Those water bodies have been suffering from serious degradation despite their enormous value and their critical roles in the global ecosystem. They have long been kind of a missing link in the global water agenda and SDGs. At the last UNEP 5, a very important resolution on sustainable lake management was adopted unanimously. I am very pleased to share with you that the draft of this resolution was proposed by the government of Indonesia and supported by many member states around the world for its adoption. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the leadership taken by the government of Indonesia. Now it is time for us to work together for achieving sustainable lake management in line with the adopted resolution. Today, we have the opportunity to learn first-hand initiatives from the speakers around the world, namely by sharing an overview of the resolution and by seeking directions and challenges in mainstreaming lakes, and by developing the momentum toward accelerating the actions at all possible levels in mainstreaming lake. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude my opening remarks by wishing you a fruitful webinar through your active participation. Thank you very much, and once again, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your welcoming remarks. Now I'd like to welcome the governor of Shiga Prefecture, Taizo Mikazuki, to deliver his opening remarks. Shiga Prefecture is home to Japan's largest lake, Lake Biwa, and has a high level of environmental awareness among its citizens and the local government. Governor Mikazuki, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taizo Mikazuki, the governor of Shiga Prefecture, Japan. Today, to start this webinar, I'd like to offer a few words as the governor of the prefecture that holds Lake Biwa, the largest freshwater lake in Japan. This webinar is being held as a side event of the Asia Pacific Water Summit in Kumamoto, which I also attended last month. There, I presented about Shiga's comprehensive conservation initiatives for Lake Biwa. I think that Lake Biwa is a mirror that reflects our way of life. This means that it can never shine if we only focus on cleaning it. Those who live around the lake must reconsider our way of life to create a clean lake environment. In that way, protecting Lake Biwa's environment is the same as reconsidering our way of life. Additionally, Lake Biwa shows us signs of global warming. It could function as a window to look through at the global environment. That's why I also think that protecting Lake Biwa is the same as protecting the global environment. Since lakes are very important for ecosystems and human beings, I insist on mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda at any occasion. I'll now tell you about a unique initiative in Shiga, the Mother Lake Goals, MLGs. The MLGs Mother Lake Goals were established in July 2021 after discussing with Shiga's residents over many years. They are common goals for the conservation of Lake Biwa that we aim to achieve by 2030. They were inspired by the SDGs, but are more applicable and achievable on a local scale. I sincerely hope that the concept of the MLGs goes beyond the boundaries of Japan and are applied in lakes around the world. In closing, I hope that this webinar will be a productive meeting and that the discussions we have here will contribute to mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda. Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。
Thank you, Governor Mikazuki. We really appreciate Shiga Prefecture for taking the initiative for mainstreaming lakes directly to ensure a brighter future. We will now get started with the keynote addresses. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type them in the Zoom chat. Please include your name, country, and which speaker you're asking the question to. Answers will be provided on the ILEC website at a later date. I would now like to turn the floor over to our first presenter, Dr. Saparis Sodaryanto, who is the Director of Planning and Supervision of Watershed Management within the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia. Dr. Saparis will be presenting on the topic of global collaboration regarding the newly adopted UNEP-5 resolution. Dr. Saparis, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, representative of UN agencies, Excellencies, representative of the other countries' government, Honorable President of International Lake Environment Committee Foundation, ILEC, Mr. Kazu Takemoto, distinguished delegates, representative of universities, research institutions, and all other participants of this morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all of you. First of all, let us praise God the Almighty for His blessing us to join this special session. It is indeed a great honor for me, on behalf of Minister of Environment and Forestry, to join this meeting. Herewith, I would like to thank and appreciate UNEP-ILEC and all committee members for convening this webinar. Webinar on taking a major steps toward mainstreaming lakes is absolutely relevant with political declaration of ongoing proceed on Conference of Parties 15 United Nations Convention to combat desertification conducted in Abidjan, as I have just attended, namely Land, Life, and Legacy Conference of the Parties from Scarcity to Prosperity. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, we are aware on decreasing condition of our lakes in one side and water crisis and the water-related disaster that we are facing on the other side. For Indonesia, lake management issue is a strategic component of environmental management and economic development. Implementing the effort via nature-based solution approach actually is not easy and really requires understanding and cooperation among stakeholders, including and local community. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, in the international level, we also gain knowledge and experience of lake management from other countries and international institutions, especially UNEP, Freshwater Unit, and ILEC, either through international fora such as the UNEA, World Lake Conference, and World Water Forum, or bilateral and multilateral cooperation. The lessons learned we receive are very useful and become input to our policy development and technical implementation. Therefore, in this meeting, allow us to represent Indonesia government to thank you and appreciate UNEP, Japanese government, and ILEC for supporting lake management in Indonesia. Within the framework of lake management at the global level, the government of Indonesia follows updated situation of water scarcity and water security in various countries, and development of international framework and effort to overcome the water crisis. One of the important framework in saving water resources at the international level is the International Decade for Action on Water for Sustainable Development 2018 until 2028. Based on both international and national situation, the government of Indonesia is committed to raising the importance of saving lake ecosystem at the global level and taking it as our proposed resolution on sustainable lake management. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the sustainable lake management resource resolution draft was officially submitted by the Indonesia ambassador in Nairobi as permanent representative of the Indonesia government to UNEP and UN Habitat at the UNEA 5.2 subcommittee meeting, December 14, 2021. The draft resolution has progressed in the stage of negotiation through formal and informal meeting and OECPR. Many inputs were submitted by various countries and other parties. In the negotiation process, Government of Indonesia represented by Ministry of Environment and Forestry and the Indonesian Embassy in Nairobi, the government was accompanied by UNEP Technical Focal Point, Dr. Joachim Herlin, and Ms. Sikines Bien Jima of the Ecosystem Division. After going through a fairly touch negotiation process, the Sustainable Lake Management Resolution finally has a consensus and was adopted at plenary session at the Committee of the Whole session of the United Nations Environment Assembly on 2nd of March 2022 in Nairobi. The government of Indonesia is currently in the consultation phase with UNEP to follow up the resolution into an implementation framework and program of activities, where implementation of the resolution will take into account the UNEP medium-term strategy 2022 until 2025 on the road to 2030. In this regard, we would like to invite government of other countries to work together with us to implement the resolution with UNEP, other member states, and other parties. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that this resolution and our cooperation to follow up, we could contribute significantly to support and advancement of mainstreaming lakes in global agenda and to the achievement of sustainable development goals. This is the time for us to give more attention to our lakes, to continue their ecosystem services for human well-being and for sustainability of our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saparis, for your speech to strengthen global collaboration. Now I'd like to invite our second presenter, Mr. Patrick Mai, Program Officer of the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP. Mr. Patrick Mai will present UNEP's collaboration with ILEC toward mainstreaming lakes. Mr. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Excellencies, ministers or Minister of Indonesia, Governor of Shiga Prefecture, President of ILEC, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to, first of all, thank Indonesia for the action that they took towards making sure that the draft resolution was presented at the UNEP-5, where it was received very well and discussed by many countries, leading to the current resolution that has been adopted. For us, it is a very pleasant and joyous moment, because we have been on this road, I would say, for a very long time, hoping and looking forward to see that the issues of lakes are highlighted. And it is my joy as a representative from UNEP to be able to speak also on this, on what UNEP is doing post the resolution. I start here by saying that I just need to move a bit. I start here by saying that we work within the UNEP water strategy. The UNEP water strategy, as the minister has mentioned, we have a strategy that goes from 2022 to 2025, and there are three planetary crises that we as UNEP have prioritized. That is climate, nature, and pollution. And this we know adversely affect freshwater. This impact freshwater ecosystems. But if we address these issues, we'll be able also to take action against these three crises. That is the climate, nature, and pollution. In this wise, so following the resolution, which was built actually from the mainstreaming lakes document, which was well put together by ILEC and other international partners, including countries. We intend to follow up on the mainstreaming of these lakes in the relevant global agendas through awareness raising and advocating for the sustainable management and conservation of lakes. So UNEP is linking up the water strategy, as I mentioned before, to deliver on these commitments through the resolution. Now, the resolution, as you know, did not come out of, not linked to other UNEA resolutions. We link it to the UNEA 3/10, where it talks about addressing water pollution to protect and restore water-related ecosystems. Currently there's efforts on behalf of, by UNEP, where we have a white paper for lake restoration, which is based on the results of a global survey. And in it, we have asking various practitioners and academicians working on this to make their comments and input into this draft. We also have ongoing activities by James Water, which address this this resolution. Ongoing monitoring of ambient water, which also includes selected lakes, though it is not complete. Then we also have coastal lakes. We have work, like, for example, in India, Lake Chilka. And all this touch on SDGs 6.5 and 6.6 targets, which 6.6 deals with quantity and 6.5 is another, it touches on IWRM. Our ILBM is, as we have already discussed in the mainstreaming document, is a complementary to the IWRM. And in our work from the past, we have managed to come up with a snapshot of the world's water quality that deals with issues of pollution around the world. And lakes were somewhat included in that, but those were not the main focus. Now, under this resolution, also we have also taken steps in the past where we have covered lakes or worked on lakes with ILEC and other partners, World Bank and many other countries, where we dwelled on these issues of lakes from 2009 to 2026 on the Transboundary Waters Assessment Program. And out of this, we managed to come up with 5 publications which were produced, including one on global lakes assessment. And moving on, there's also another step that we are taking, that is the integrating of this lakes management into national and regional development plans. For example, in Kenya, we have had, working very closely with ILEC, we have had Kenya validating its strategy in various meetings, which accumulated into a strategy that has now been presented before Cabinet. And it deals with mostly the lakes within the Rift Valley. As I've mentioned, as you can see here, we have Lake Victoria, which is the biggest lake in Africa, Lake Baringo, Lake Nakuru, Lake Turkana, and Lake Bogoria. This just as an example. Then moving on, we have also steps to integrate this at the regional level. For example, at the regional level, we have the networking of the same actions in East Africa also spread out to West Africa. And this is a learning example for all of the partners or participants in this or countries in this region. You find the West Africans will learn from the East Africans. And I'm sure the same thing goes on with other regions. And this is the way we intend to work with countries and regions in making sure that the resolution is implemented. Then I just want to give you a history. So historically, just to say that historically we have not been doing nothing, but there is a lot of movement. The issue was to bring lakes into focus. We have worked with Shiga Prefecture since 1984, the creation of ILEC, establishing it in 1986. We have done several projects, like, for example, Survey of the State of the Wild Lakes, Data Book of Wild Lake Environments, Data Book which contains sets of data on 217 lakes. What I'm trying to say here is that we are going to build on a foundation that has already been done, but we now need to prioritize and begin to move in a very logical and systematic manner towards implementation of the resolution. At the UNEP level, we have also had contributions from several UNEP projects and publications. For example, the GEO, which is a flagship project, always includes something on lakes, and there is always a contribution from ILEC. The James Water provides the lake data and information. Then we have what we are calling the Wild Environment Situation Room, which now is looking at data and information of Wild Lakes database. We're drawing from the Wild Lakes database. And other events also, and we have been involved in participation on the Wild Lakes conferences. And also the webinars that we have had since 2020 to 2022, and also the Mainstreaming Lakes document. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to stay long, but I would like to say that we are hands-on and can look forward to working very closely with our partners, the countries,
Okay, so let us introduce the next presenter, Dr. Takemoto, and then we'll get back to Mr. Patrick later. Okay, so I'd like to invite our presenter, Dr. Kazuhiko Takemoto, the president of ILEC, and Dr. Takemoto will present ILEC's 5-year action plan. Dr. Takemoto, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Okaji-san, for your kind introduction. I am very pleased to share with you by taking this opportunity what we are now developing the next 5-year framework as a 5-year action plan In particular, this timing is very important because, as we have heard from the previous speakers, the UNEP-5 resolution on sustainable lake development was adopted last March, and we are going to reflect the outcome of this important resolution to develop this 5-year action plan. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the short background. As you are aware, the many remarkable development has emerged toward mainstreaming lake basin management in global water and conservation agenda. Namely, let me take up two major development. UNEP-5, as I said, the resolution on sustainable lake management, and also the SDGs implementation. And growing effort has been developed toward the target year 2030. In this moment, ILEC is expected to play a further important role in addressing the sustainable management and the conservation of the lake basin environment. In this regard, we are now preparing the 5-year action plan as a framework for the further the strategic development of the activities for the endorsement by the ILEC board meeting at the forthcoming the next meeting late May. Next slide, please. Now, our 5-year action plan consists of 3 major elements, namely mission and visions, second, strategic actions, and review and follow-up. Next slide, please. First, mission and visions. According to the article of the ILEC Charter, the ILEC mission is defined as follows. ILEC will contribute to the sustainable management and the conservation of lakes and basin in the world through the international research and human resource development. Next slide, please. Now, Vision 1 is on the ILBM contribution for mainstreaming lake basin management. Integrated lake basin management is to provide a wide range of stakeholders with a framework for lake and basin management. And at the same time, ILBM will be able to contribute to mainstreaming lake basin management. Next slide, please. Vision 2 is on further development of efforts toward achieving SDGs based on global assessment of lakes and Atlantic waters. This is also very important vision because according to the global assessment of the lakes and Atlantic waters, it is recognized the very important roles and the values in the developing sustainable development goals as well as the global water agenda. In this regard, the values must be reflected in a sound manner to the further development of SDGs as well as global water agenda as well. Next slide, please. This is the very important part of our 5-year action plan. the strategic actions, which is consisting of 4 major elements, namely scientific knowledge development, activities by scientific committee, international cooperation, and human resource development. Next slide, please. First one, this is the overall actions which the ILEC is seeking from the beginning. In this regard, we have developed scientific knowledge for the international community for its actions, as well as the policy makers and practitioners for moving forward. Major priority areas are as follows: to involve all relevant stakeholders. Secondly, develop research capacity building, sharing information and knowledge and public awareness. And thirdly, to develop international cooperation. Next slide, please. Now, the scientific committee plays a very important role in developing scientific agenda in the context of ILEC activity toward the sustainable lake management. And particularly, we ask the scientific committee members to take up this important task. Today, we are very happy to have the 2 distinguished scientific committee members, namely Walter Rust as its the chair, and also the Lenny as the vice chair of this committee. And according to their contribution, we are very happy to further move forward to develop a scientific agenda as well. At the same time, we are very much looking forward to having them as the resource person for our panel discussion in this afternoon. Once again, we rely on the scientific agenda development for scientific committee for their task. Next slide, please. Then the third point is international cooperation. ILEC held the World Lake Conference together with a host organization from 1984. We organize this World Lake Conference every 2 years, mostly. And last year, we had the 18th World Lake Conference in Mexico. World Lake Conference is a unique opportunity for the stakeholders around the world to get together, to share the common agenda for discussion toward the possible solution. Then the World Lake Conference is the very important opportunity for us to disseminate information and share the experience with the international community. At the same time, we have agreed on the MOU with UNEP. And last year, December, we revised this MOU with UNEP toward the further development of our common agenda. In this regard, I would like to extend our thanks to Patrick for his contribution. Also, in Japan, we would like to mobilize the many experts who are engaged in our activities, and we are going to create expert group to assist the ILEC Secretariat in terms of professional capacity. Next slide, please. This is the last one of our major activities, training human resource development. ILEC has been also developing this program from its establishment in 1986. This opportunity to educate or develop human resource capacity in the developing countries, the staff members who are engaged in lake management. Also, we have specific bilateral cooperation in this training program. For instance, for Indonesia, in close collaboration with the Ministry of the Environment of Japan, we have started this special training program. Today, we have Dr. Kawamata as one of the panelists, and we are very much welcoming his initiative in this regard as well. ILEC has accumulated the knowledge databases through our program, and also we are very happy to provide the international community with these outcomes. Now, also the training course alumni should be the part of our asset. And in this regard, we are very happy to develop our own network of alumni of training course. Next slide, please. This is the final slide, review and follow-up. As the president of ILEC, together with Dr. Nakamura as the vice president, we are going to report to the ILEC board on the regular basis. In this 5-year action plan, we are going to submit this draft for its review, and also beyond this year, regularly we are going to report to the ILEC board for its review and toward the further effective implementation of this plan. By the way, among board members, Dr. Hiroki plays very important role in developing our scientific agenda substantial manner. With this, I would like to conclude my own presentation. ILEC, together with all of you, in particular the government, also the stakeholders, together with them, we are going to implement the outcome of UNEA 5, in particular the resolution on sustainable lake management, and toward the effective and the smooth fruitful implementation. We are going to make every effort to commit ourselves. Finally, once again, I would like to look forward having the dynamic discussion in this today's panel toward our actions, in particular the concrete action to move forward. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takemoto, for your presentation and for introducing ILEC's 5-year action plan. And then now, Mr. Patrick, are you here? I hope Mr. Patrick is back.
Yes, I'm back, and sorry for my internet broke just at the last minute, but I had finished.
Can you continue your presentation?
I just wanted to say I had finished, and I had finished all that I wanted to say, and then thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we have concluded our keynote addresses for today. So let us move on to panel discussion. And from here, I'll hand over the hosting duties to Ms. Adelina Santos Boja, a member of the ILEC Scientific Committee, who goes by the name of Lenny. Lenny, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rita-san. To all the participants and panelists, greetings from the Philippines. I am Adelina Santos Borja, your moderator for this afternoon's panel discussion. Thank you very much to ILEC and UNEP for giving me this opportunity. The panel discussion will focus on taking a major step toward mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda and in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The primary objective is to identify specific directions and challenges on mainstreaming lakes, which will come from the presentations and contributions of 5 esteemed panelists, whom I will now introduce one by one. May I request each panelist to please raise your hand as I introduce you. So everyone is on board. First, let me start with Ms. Inge Retnowati, the Director of Inland Waters and Mangrove Rehabilitation of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia. Ibu Inge. Then we have Dr. Kotaro Kawamata, the Director of the Water Environment Division of the Environmental Management Bureau of Japan's Ministry of the Environment. Dr. Kawamata.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay. From the ILEC Board of Directors is Dr. Kenzo Hiroki, who is also a professor at Japan's National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies.
Good morning and good afternoon.
Also from ILEC is the chairperson of the ILEC Scientific Committee, Dr. Walter Rust, who is also Professor Emeritus at Texas State University. Yeah, Walter, it's there. And finally, Dr. Masahisa Nakamura, the Vice President of ILEC and a key figure in the development of the Integrated Lake Basin Management Framework. Dr. Nakamura? Okay. So thank you to all our panelists for joining this afternoon's discussion. May I call first on Ibu Inge Retnowati to give a presentation on the implementation of the resolution on sustainable lake management, which was spearheaded by the government of Indonesia.
Very much, Selene. I'll try to share screen. Excellencies, representative of UN agencies, Excellencies, representative of other government of other countries, Honorable President of International Lake Environment Committee Foundation, ILEC, Mr. Kazuhiko Takemoto, distinguished delegates, representatives of universities, research institutions, and all other participants of this meeting. A very good afternoon to all of you. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera in Bahasa Indonesia, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, we would like to thank you for the invitation to share our view on the resolution on sustainable lake management. Would like also to thank you and appreciate ILEC and UNEP collaboration for convening this webinar. My name is Inge Retnowati, Director of Inland Waters and Mangrove Rehabilitation, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Indonesia. It is indeed a great honor for me to join this meeting. Let me also introduce, actually, we are not only me to present actually for this opportunity. I work with our representative from Indonesian Embassy in Nairobi, Mr. Dani Rahdiansa, also here. He also deputy permanent representative for UNEP and UN Habitat. Now let us start with a brief overview of the important role of lakes. Natural and artificial lakes contain more than 90% of the liquid fresh water on the earth's surface for human well-being and the ecosystem. Lakes are major contributors to achieving water availability and accessibility to protect lives and livelihoods and to the advancement of the 2030 Agenda. Lakes provide a wide range of ecosystem services. Lakes can play a positive role as an adaptation measure to climate change and can serve as a reduction measure to water-related disasters from the adverse impacts of climate change. Besides the important role of lakes, we all understand the situation where we are facing the water crisis. This is the situation of Indonesian lakes. We have more than 1,500 lakes spread inland Indonesia, accommodate about 500 cubic kilometers of water, or 72% of the total Indonesia surface water. Have total capacity more than 2,160 megawatt of electricity from 8 of 15 vital lakes, the fourth largest number of freshwater species in the world after Brazil, China, and the United States, also facing problems of sustainability, water quality, sedimentation, eutrophication, threat of biodiversity, and others. For Indonesia, lake management issues is a strategic component of environmental management and economic development. We are of the firm belief that saving the lake ecosystem will significantly contribute to address the situation. Within the framework of lake management at the global level, the government of Indonesia follows up the development of international frameworks, agreements, and efforts to overcome the water crisis. And the idea of proposing a resolution on lake management is built up on the global agreements. Some of the agreements is UNEA Resolution number 3/10 year of 2017 on addressing water pollution to protect and restore water-related ecosystem. And United Nations General Assembly Resolution year of 2018 on midterm comprehensive review of the International Decade for Action on Water for Sustainable Development 2018-2028. The resolution stated noting that the world is not on track to achieve water-related sustainable development goals and targets at the global level by 2030 at the current rate of progress. Based on both international and national situation, the government of Indonesia committed to advancing the importance of saving lake ecosystems at the global level and taking it as proposed resolution on sustainable lake management. We also place it as a part of our effort to achieve the targets of sustainable development goals. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the Sustainable Lake Management Resolution considers the characteristics, services provided, condition of, and threats to lakes management. Hence, we realize that lake management has to be implemented in a sustainable manner. Therefore, by the resolution, we encourage all countries or member states and also all other international organizations to implement the sustainable lake management, which consists of protect, conserve, restore, and sustainable use of lakes. Integrated lake management plan, which is internalized into development plan, community engagement, stakeholders involvement, research and science policy linkages, and international networking and collaboration. The draft resolution of sustainable lake management was officially proposed by the government of Indonesia prior to UNEP-ILEC, and it was adopted during UNEP 5.2 on March 2nd, 2022 in Nairobi. Negotiation of the draft resolution of sustainable lake management is assisted by UNEP Technical Focal Point at the time, Dr. Joaquin Harlin, the Chief of UNEP Freshwater Unit, and Ms. Nikines Bianjima from Ecosystem Division. Now let me continue with explaining Indonesian effort in lake management. Against the challenges of lake management, government of Indonesia has taken several actions. Among others, first, designing priority lakes, formulation of integrated lake management plan of each priority lake, and integrated in local and national development plan. Second, implementation of integrated programs, among others, database development, spatial planning, forest and land rehabilitation, water quality management, water pollution control, biodiversity conservation, solid waste management, sustainable agriculture and fishery, and transfer for better livelihood. Third, establishment of presidential decree on safe priority lakes regarding policy, strategy, and collaboration among ministries. And the fourth is actively involved in global forum on lake management for sharing of and gain more knowledge, experience, and best practices on sustainable lake management, and enhancing global concern and action on lake conservation and rehabilitation. In general, lake management in Indonesia consists of two main components, catchment management and water quality management. If necessary, we can explain or discuss it more detail in the discussion session. Now, allow me to continue with the explanation on implementation of the resolution. There are several main crucial elements in implementing the resolution, including first, campaign of sustainable lake management in several fora and relevant global agenda or frameworks, implementation of sustainable lake management by member states, capacity building, lessons learning, and knowledge transfer in policy making and technical approach, and pilot project on technical approach or measures based on local condition or challenges. Implementation of the resolution could be developed in some frameworks, where the main framework is based on the UNEP medium-term strategy, which is derived to UNEP program of work and budget. Each member state can also develop framework of implementation based on their strategic plan. Besides of that, implementation framework be developed by other relevant schemes. The government of Indonesia is currently in the consultation phase with UNEP to follow up the resolution into an implementation framework and program of activities. We try to develop our proposal or program of implementation. We have four main components. Concept consists of implementation of the resolution. The first one is community engagement. Second one is water quality management. Third one is education. The last one is capacity enhancement and campaign. I think I agree with in this regard, we would like also to invite government of other countries and international organizations to work together with UNEP and us, and also other member states and related international organizations to implement the resolution. The upcoming UN Water Conference on March 2023 in New York may be a good momentum for us for the lake's important role in achieving the 2030 agenda and encourage the implementation of sustainable lake management on a global scale. Maybe we can get an iconic moment, maybe on a specific date for a global joint movement in sustainable lake management. We believe by this resolution and our cooperation to follow up, we could contribute significantly to support the advancement of mainstreaming lakes in the global agenda and to the achievement of sustainable development goals, and for our lakes to continue their ecosystem services for human well-being and for sustainability of the environment. We thank you.
Terima kasih Ibu Inge for sharing Indonesia's impressive actions at the local and international level. And again, thank you to the Republic of Indonesia for championing the resolution on sustainable lake management at the United Nations Environment Assembly. Our next speaker is Dr. Kotaro Kawamata, who will talk about the major steps that the Japanese government is undertaking toward the mainstreaming of lakes. Dr. Kawamata, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists. I'd like to send my deep appreciation to Indonesian government for leading successful adoption of the resolution on sustainable lake management. Also, I would like to thank for ILEC and UNEP for inviting me on this important webinar in order to share challenges and discuss ways to overcome them. On behalf of Japanese government, I would like to share our views on sustainable lake management. Before going into my PowerPoint presentation, I would like to mention a little bit about history and background of lake conservation measures in Japan. Japan has a long history on promoting lake-based management. In 1970s, we faced severe water pollution nationwide and worked hard to improve water quality with various measures based on Water Pollution Control Act adopted in 1970s. The Act regulates industrial and domestic wastewater by effluent standards. Thanks to the Act, water quality in Japan has been improved. Nowadays, environmental quality standards are well achieved for rivers, but they are still poorly achieved for lakes due to enclosed nature of them. To improve environmental quality standards for lakes, Japanese government has established the Lake Act in 1984. The act requires to develop a water quality conservation plan for each designated designated lake. Based on the history and background, I move my PowerPoint presentation. Let's share that. Excuse me. Oh. I will touch upon lake conservation measures in Japan, the future direction. There are three pillars. First, implementation of lake basin water quality management. Of course, data is important because it's a necessary basic information to find effective measures. Effluent regulations and public works construction are key to control measures. Non-point source is difficult to control, so we need to enhance measures for non-point sources. Secondly, target setting based on the characteristic of each lake. Bespoke plans made for each lake is necessary. We need both long-term vision and short-term interim target. Step-by-step approach is appropriate. In order to improve water quality, we need to improve lakeside environment and restore purification function of nature. Thirdly, promotion of collaborations with various stakeholders. Engagement by stakeholders is key to achieve the target. Japan has developed a legal framework. We think these 6 factors are important. They are responsibility of the national and local governments. Secondly, philosophy, policies, plans, measures. And thirdly, coordination between parties concerned. And fourthly, implementation of research, development of science and technology. Fifth, reporting on the measures taken. And last but not least, financial initiatives. And they are almost equal to the factors need to be implemented, ILBM, Integrated Lake-Based Management. They are organization structures, policies, participation, technologies, information, and finance. So in other words, that we actually follow what ILBM insisted. Based on the experience of Japan, we carry out training courses on lake basin management for developing countries. Here, I would like to introduce 2 training courses. First one is online training course on Indonesian lake conservation program. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, that course became online course. About 60 people from local governments and academia participated in the training. Previous year, it was held in Shiga Prefecture, which has the biggest lake in Japan, Biwa Lake. Another training course is JICA Knowledge Co-Creation Program, and the topic is Integrated Lake, River, and Coastal Basin Management for Sustainable Use and Preservation of Water Resources. 9 officers from 7 countries participated. Japan continued to support developing countries for capacity building to improve lake basin management based on our Japan's experience. Actually, ILEC ran these training courses. In conclusion, Japan has long history and experience to implement lake basin management almost equal to ILBM, and also training courses for developing countries. We welcome UNEP-ILEC's effort to mainstream ILBM, and we also expect to widen its understanding by various activities based on the resolution in UNEA 5.2. So Japan is ready to contribute to mainstreaming ILBM internationally. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kawamata, for your excellent presentation. May I now request Sensei Kenzo Hiroki to give his presentation on the mainstreaming of lakes in the global agenda. Sensei Hiroki, please.
Thank you very much, Chair Reni-san. So let me talk about mainstreaming lakes in global agenda. What are the messages, targets, strategy, and symbolic actions? First of all, the lakes are in crisis. This is obvious. Seeing is believing. This is the shrinking RRC from the 1970s to 2010s. This is 1977 satellite picture, and then the lake area is diminishing quite quickly, as you see here. And if you see the data, it is obvious. This is a SDG 6.6 aquatic ecosystem, and then this indicates the water areas in the world. And obviously, year by year and day by day, the total water area inland is diminishing quickly. And if you see the breakdown of the water areas in each of the regions, we are equally diminishing water areas, mostly lakes and wetlands. So we are in crisis. But why are we in the crisis? To explain this, we have to see how our society is working to improve our own lives. Suppose this is a lake, and we have various sectors using lakes and water. They have their own good objective for environmental policy. They want to improve water for ecosystems. Hygiene policies, they want to use water for drinking water and sanitation. For industry, for industrial production. Inland navigation for the transportation sector. Water for food for agricultural policy. And hydropower generation for water policy. So as you can see here, that every sector is making use of water for their good reason. But because of their goodwill, the water and the lakes are falling apart. So ILBM, Integrated Lake Basin Management concept, is to pull this outward centrifugal power of the policy objectives to centripetal objectives. That meaning that this ILBM is to use lakes as a gravitation of all the sectors towards lakes management. This is how ILBM should work. We have to think and act in the water cycle. We have the lake in the center, but we have all the basin. Actually, in the circulation of water from evaporation to rainfall to the groundwater and to the sea back. So the lakes should be in the center of the water cycle. But it is to say and difficult to manage and act. How can we mainstream lakes in an actual sense? I believe that there are 4 key elements in mainstreaming lakes in global agenda. If we want to mainstream it, we need to have a clear answer to the following 4 questions. Number 1, messages. What are clear-cut messages to convince people and politicians of the criticality of the lakes for our future? Obviously, those people which I showed in the previous picture are outside lake box. They are not lake people. And we have to convince that by paying more attention and cooperation to lake management, they also benefit. But what are the understandable message to them? 2, targets. What are our measurable targets to promote tangible actions for better lakes? We cannot improve what we cannot measure. So we have to make our improvement visible in terms of lake management. Strategy. What should we do to reach consensus on the above, emanate the messages, and achieve the targets? We need a clear-cut strategy to make things happen step by step. And also symbolic action is needed. What action should we take as a symbol of mainstream lakes in global agenda to show them the torch that we are carrying to mainstream the lakes? Number 1, messages. This is just one example. Transboundary water assessment program by UNEP and others. There are a number of the key messages and recommendations, like lakes and other Atlantic water systems contain more than 90% of liquid freshwater. Lakes respond to environmental stress in a slow, incremental, and non-linear manner. There is a serious deficiency of lake-specific information and data, and so forth. But the important thing is we need a flagship messages that should be decided by lake people. Number 2, targets. We all know that there are 6 targets of the SDGs, SDG 6, including those for the lakes. But where is the lake? Out of the SDG targets, there are specific targets that relate to specifically to lakes. So the lake people can make a contribution from the to the SDG targets. Like for example, for 632, assessment of water quality specifically for lakes, because we believe that lakes water quality is critical for the future of the human being. 651, degree of the integrated water resource management, coverage and progress rate of ILBM planning and implementation in major lakes. 652, proportion of the transboundary basin area. So we can show to the international community the proportion of transboundary lake basin area with an operational arrangement for water cooperation. 661, change the extent of water-related ecosystem. Lake-specific area criteria on ecosystem should be developed. So we have to make a contribution from the lakes to the SDG targets. Number 3, strategy. We have to position lakes in an international water process. This is the a classification of all the conferences and processes related to water. If you distribute them by size and by legitimacy, we can put thousands and hundreds of the meetings and conferences. Some of them are periodical, some of them are independent, some of them are just one time. But if you see here, you have a important meetings like a UN General Assembly and UNEA. And there are smaller size but important group like influential bodies that directly influence world leaders. And there's a non-legitimate process, but again important because of the huge size, like World Water Forum. And if we put World Lake Conference in this classification, we are mid-class size, and non-legitimate because it is not a UN conference. So what we have to do is to push up the importance of the legitimacy World Lake Conference, and at the same time we have to connect our own conference with other processes like World Water Forum, General Assembly, UNEA, and the influential bodies like high-level panel on many things. So to strategize this, we have to raise political profile of the World Lake Conference so that politicians and partners, by, for example, organizing ministerial conference within the Lake Conference and creation of the ILBN principle, which governors and mayors sign for their participation. This is just examples. And also create and link with the UN advisory groups and partners process so that they collaborate in lobbying for lakes. In this context, establishing global high-level panel on lakes is worthwhile to consider. For example, feed messages and targets of the World Lake Conference into the UN member states and stakeholders towards mainstream lakes, which we are doing right now. A symbolic action. I would rather suggest just one action, that is the World Lake Day to be adopted by the UN General Assembly, which has been discussed in the UNEP-ILEC also. Actually, there are more than tens of the UN decades, years, and days. For example, international decades, actually 4 out of the 43 UN decades, UN decided decades are about water, for example. International years, 4 out of 64 UN decided international years are about water. And the international day, 5 out of 156 UN decided days are about water. So why not having one more, which is dedicated to lake? UN lake, decade, year, or day is possible if there is a will. This is a simple process, starting from the creation of the Friends of the Lakes group among the member states in New York. And there should be a discussion on the concept of World Lake Day, and submission of the Lake Day resolution on World Lake Day to G77, and submission and adoption of resolution at the second committee of the General Assembly, and finally, adoption of resolution. This can happen within a year or two. So, important thing is that we are determined to start the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sensei Hiroki, for your comprehensive, and I should say, it's really a very magnificent presentation and very concrete presentations on the actions on how to mainstream lakes at the global level. And this speaks well of your extensive experience in water-related issues and concerns. Again, thank you very much. We will now hear from Dr. Walter Rust on the outcomes of the 18th World Lake Conference and the succeeding actions taking place from different continents. Dr. Rust, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say, are we getting, good. I'm afraid in some ways I'm a dinosaur where sharing is concerned here on the screen. So I appreciate the help I've been given by the people there. And I want to say hello to everybody around the world, wherever you may be. I also realize as I've been listening that one of the disadvantages of being late in the program is that half the things you were going to say have already been said by somebody else. So you may have to listen to them again, and perhaps in a slightly different context. But I want to talk about lakes and our global water agenda. Next. I should say, this should say, why lakes? Well, achieving the majority of the SDGs, particularly these there, and especially number 6, is going to require adequate supplies of fresh water, which depend greatly on how much we know about lakes, their basins, and how we sustainably manage them, and the ecosystem services that they give us, which are life-supporting in many ways, and they promote our health, our well-being, socioeconomic development, and our and nature at the global and national level. Next. We're still saying why lakes. You've heard this 2 or 3 times already, but only about 1% of all the surface liquid water is fresh water in a liquid form. And we've heard this also, more than 90% exist in lakes and wetlands, or so-called lentic water systems. In fact, we have millions of lakes on every continent, and they do provide a wider range of ecosystem services than other aquatic ecosystems. In addition, they serve as aquatic habitats for a range of important flora and fauna for humans. We can't talk about them here because that's an entire lecture itself. They have some unique properties that have to be considered: long water retention time, integrating nature, and so forth. And their management challenges are typically not considered in many, or probably most, freshwater management plans. These unique characteristics and their management challenges. And we have come to the conclusion, we being people in ILEC and others, that because of this lack of understanding and knowledge about some of these unique properties and challenges, they represent missing links in the global water discussions. There aren't these specific things related to lakes. We have global scale programs for rivers, for large marine ecosystems, regional seas, etc., but nothing exists really for lakes. Next slide, please. Now, I've been asked to talk a little bit about the most recent involvement of ILEC in regard to global lake work. And that was the 18th World Lake Conference that was held virtually because of COVID in November of 2021 with the theme of governance, resilience, and sustainability of lakes for a better society. And their sort of subtitles that the health of people was directly related to ecosystem health, the health of the ecosystems upon which they depend. Now, specifically, one of the components of the World Lake Conference was a joint UNEP-ILEC special session on mainstreaming lakes and wetlands in the global water agenda and the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. The main objective of this special session, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of this stuff because, as I've said, you can give week-long courses on some of this stuff, but the main objective was to allow some very productive and fruitful discussions of the complex management challenges that face the sustainable use of lakes and these ecosystems services that we are talking about. And one of the underlying rationale was that we would like to put something together for possible use at UNEP-5, the 5th United Nations Environmental Assembly, and the subsequent 9th World Water Forum that was held. So it's an interesting group of meetings all in about 6 months dealing with global scale water systems. Next, please. Now, the special session highlighted UNEP and ILEC activities regarding the status of the world's lakes and wetlands, their management challenges, particularly those to their sustainable use, and their essential roles in achieving the SDGs. And you can appreciate that the achievement of the SDGs is very important to the governments around the world, even though some of their timelines are somewhat unrealistic, but they're good goals. And this special session, again, highlighted the urgent need to recognize lakes as significant missing links in the global water agenda. That's been sort of an underlying goal of ILEC for some time, to get people to recognize this. It included statements on the need to mainstream lakes nationally and globally by a number of government representatives, and a number of relevant international organizations, World Health Organization, the World Bank, the International Society of Ethnology. As you can see these here, the Global Environment Facility. All of them gave statements of various kinds at the conference. And what I'm going to do is just show you some of the statements because, again, this was a very rich conference and a rich special session, I should say, in regard to this, and there were many, many discussions. Next, please. So some major statements from the participants, the governments. All the government representatives that spoke supported the goal of mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda. And there were a number of reasons. In some cases, they literally didn't know the state of their lakes nationally. They needed guidance as to how they could be assessed and addressed for sustainable water supply for the various purposes and so on. So they were all rather enthusiastic about that. They also noted that mainstreaming lakes was an important goal because they represent essential elements for ensuring healthy ecosystems, which in turn would facilitate good health and human well-being. Another Observation, again, I'm paraphrasing these statements, that the rivers and lakes must be considered together in developing basin scale sustainable water management plans, meaning that the health of the ecosystem is health of humanity. And that's one of the things that ILBM has been focusing on, which is to consider the broader picture, the fact that a lake is just not a hole in the ground sitting there isolated. It has inflowing rivers. Most have outflowing rivers, and lakes accept stresses from all directions, and they have an integrating nature and so on. But you have to consider the sources, how lakes are becoming that way, shoreline and otherwise, even outside their basins in terms of long-range transport. So it's a comprehensive picture of all the stresses and the management needs, targets, I think as Dr. Hideyoki was mentioning. Next, please. Some of the international organizations of which there were a range, again, all of them agreed on the need to mainstream lakes in the global water agenda. And a number of them were pleased to note the consistency of the mainstreaming lakes efforts with their ongoing mandates or activities. And you have to appreciate, and I'll say it now, that as we say mainstreaming lakes, we're really talking about mainstreaming ILBM into the global water agenda. Another suggestion is that they use existing governance elements to the maximum extent in order to facilitate the process, not ignore ILBM, but see what we have there that already exists, which we could use also within the context of ILBM to help facilitate the process. There was a relationship to the Wetlands Convention that was noted, particularly similar degradation management challenges that lakes face. And these include pollution, overabstraction of water, climate change impacts, invasive species, habitat, and biodiversity losses, which are actually common problems in many, many, many lakes around the world. Next slide, please. Another observation was that there are many common lake degradation problems on a global scale. I say common. It's not that many lakes have all kinds of unique characteristics. They're typically nutrients, toxic substances, sedimentation. There used to be acid lakes. I think they've had some luck, etc. Microbial pollution. I'm just saying it's surprising how many common problems exist. The major differences in addressing them, though, includes consideration of the extent to which they are recognized, to identify the causative factors. This is in contrast to simply treating the symptoms, and most important, determining the extent to which they can be addressed within the function or within the capacity and the resources of the countries in which they're located. And that's going to be a function, as I say here, of the resources, political and human. Political will is often important, adequate institutions, sustainable finances. And you may notice that these are basically the ILBM components, the 6 elements that are necessary for ILBM to be implemented. And it was also suggested by another person that we had significant knowledge already to at least tackle many lake problems over time. But a major omission, and I've heard this on more than one occasion, was the translation of knowledge into understandable terms for management authorities in order for them to make informed management actions. I'm afraid it's a problem with we scientists when we write things. We often write them for other scientists, put them in journals, and this doesn't help decision makers. And of course, decision makers don't necessarily understand science, and scientists have to understand the needs of decision makers. There's a relationship there that communication sometimes isn't as good as it could be in either direction. Next slide, please. Some special session major recommendations, and this is something that Patrick was trying to point out here before he got frozen there. The policy management actions that are needed now to control lake degradation around the world include promoting efforts at the global level to mainstream lakes. Almost everybody that's talked now has talked about that. Mainstream lakes, ILBM, as key freshwater components in developing and applying national strategic water policies and programs. That's basically the core of mainstreaming lakes. Second one is actually 2. I've combined them. Was to develop a global platform for cross-fertilization, sharing experiences, case studies, lessons learned, successes, failures, etc., in order to accelerate replication of the successful national lake basin practices in other locations around the world and even within their countries. And secondly, to use the platform to adopt and integrate ILBM principles for gradual, incremental, and sustained improvement of national level lake basin governance, which is what it's focusing on, governance. Next slide, please. And I had to put this one at the top because I ran out of space at the bottom of the other one. And it's already been mentioned by Dr. Hiroki, to adopt some key symbolic action or activity that recognizes and raises awareness of the importance of lakes on a global scale. And one of the easiest things is to establish a World Lake Day and associated recognition activities. And it seems like it would be we seem to have days for everything else. I noticed on one of Dr. Hiroki's side, we have a World Toilet Day. Well, if we have one of those, we probably should have a World Lake Day too. It would only seem fair. And so, in addition to a number of other conclusions or recommendations, I'm just summarizing by saying that a major special session output was a mainstreaming lakes proposal that was put together with the idea that we would transmit it to UNEP-ILEC for consideration for there. And Indonesia ended up being a very champion country for us because our major achievement was they did an integrated lake management resolution was adopted, and certainly in large part to the considerable efforts of Indonesia. And it must have worked very well because it was adopted unanimously by the governments to support the mainstreaming of sustainable lake management at all levels, including the integration of lakes into national plans that involve, among other things, climate adaptation, water resources management, and biodiversity conservation. Next slide, please. Oh, and this is actually my last slide. And I have to apologize. I've given you a very broad overview of a large, extensive group of discussions. I can only give you some of them because we only have a few minutes here. But I want to give you the sites in case you don't have them. I noticed we had some 80 some odd people. They may want to get some of this stuff. The ILEC website itself, which is www.ilec.org, has many documents about the ILBM platform, and it also contains the UNEP-5 Integrated Lake Management Resolution, a copy of it, which you can get there. And if you're interested in a special session, I've also given you the World Lake Conference 18 website at the University of Guanajuato, which is, it also is there, the discussions are there. So I think that's it. Next slide, please. That's me. Okay. That's all I have to say right now. And it's very clear I'm not a movie star, but I appreciate your attention and hope, you know, I've had to repeat some things, but I hope certainly for some of the audience that may not have heard some of this, it was useful. And we thought the World Lake Conference special session was actually quite good. And we expect to be working particularly with UNEP in many ways to continue major steps toward mainstreaming lakes. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to our upcoming discussions.
Thank you very much, Professor Russ, for your broad and yet very insightful report. Finally, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Masahisa Nakamura, who will talk about the many facets of sustainable lake management and of mainstreaming lakes. Dr. Nakamura, the floor is yours, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Lenny, and thank you very much for all the panelists. We need to leave some time for our discussion. So I'll very quickly go through my slides. What I wanted to point out is sustainable lake management or mainstream lakes, many facets, and to be able to get perspective on how the facets look like, identify the target audiences and the roles to be played by all the parties, including ILEC. Next. I would like to focus on the scopes. There are three scopes as I see it: spatial scopes, temporal scope, and perceptual scope in defining sustainable lake basin management. Spatial scope, of course, we have individual lakes, small lakes, large lakes, flagship lakes, unknown lakes, and so on. But we have these lakes that we have to deal with. But at the same time, we have to talk about the sort of missing link issue. The lakes as a whole, on the global scale, what is it that we're talking about? This also pertains to some of the transboundary challenges. Temporal, we have SDG, yes. We have some government planning scope, time horizons, and so on. But we have to agree that all of these lakes we deal with are going to be with us for zillions of years. If not, they don't disappear. So we are talking about not projects or even programs. We're talking about the commitment, the social commitment of governance. That is what we need to aim at in the process. Of course, there are lots of things we have to do. Perceptual scope is something that has come up in the last 10, 15 years. We have very explicit perceptions expressed by different parties, and sometimes outright sort of contentious situations. But if you take into account some of the implicit perceptual scope, many of them may turn out to be common challenges. And maybe we have room for agreement for many of these things. Take the case of many different examples. We can talk about it, but let's focus on this Lake Biwa Yodo River Basin, where Governor mentioned about, and Mr. Kawamata mentioned, and our friends participating in this webinar also, many of them are from this basin. If you look at the global lake basin typologies, we have sorted out, but we have, the interlinkages of flowing rivers and groundwaters, a variety of them. Each typology has unique needs for addressing the challenges. So knowing the typology of lakes is extremely important. And we have, for example, Lake Biwa, but we take Lake Biwa as one example, but we have to realize that there are a lot, variety of Lake Biwas globally, Lake Biwa, Yodo River, Osaka Bay system globally. There are the variety of scales different. So each and every systems that we have to deal would have to be related to some cases, the common properties and common challenges, so that we can talk in the same language. For that, the Lake Biwa Yodo River Basin plays probably a very important role. For example, in the spatial scope, we have so many satellite lakes and individual interlinked systems artificial constructed wetlands, and so on. But at the same time, we're talking about the whole of Lake Biwa, very large lakes, 670 square kilometers and so on, and among the major lake systems on the globe. So this looking at the Lake Biwa and the surrounding area provides a lot of perspectives of the spatial scope. The temporal scope, of course, we are talking about the governments or NGOs and stakeholders and local governments, policies and program legal framework and so on and so forth. But as I said, we are talking also about the global Atlantic waters that have been with us since the global the formation of these waters started, and then of course it'll be with us. Some of them are disappearing, but many of them remain, and we have to deal with that long-term perspective. And this temporal scope is also very much important issue that the Lake Biwa river system poses. Perceptual scope, as I said, many explicit experiences we have had, but when you go into some of the implicit values, intrinsic values, and the perceptual profiles, it may not necessarily be outright coming out. And particularly when we talk about the cultural, traditional, religious perspective across the globe, we are talking about these dictating factors, persons' political system, administrative systems, value formation, and so on. That's a very much a part of this global challenge that we have to deal with. So in conclusion, we have done some, and we have to continue to do this, but we need a lot of collaboration, contribution to do this. We need to update and expand the knowledge base on the global experience and lessons learned, focusing on spatial, temporal, and perceptual scales of importance in managing for wide dissemination. As I said, we have done this about 20 years ago once. We have to update it, and we have to have a lot of organizations, individual governments, individual institutions to collaborate with us to develop a much more wider range of challenges that will contribute to the true sense of the sustainable lake management. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nakamura, for excellently pointing out what are in the horizon insofar as taking the major step is concerned. Before we commence with the panel discussion, please allow me to say, and surely everyone in this webinar would agree, that we have just witnessed the brilliance of our panelists. Now, taking off from the Guanajuato Declaration, wherein the major step recommended was, the mainstream of lakes in the global water agenda, and through the championship shown by Indonesia, I mean, as the champions for sustainable lake management, they were able to bring this to the attention of the United Nations Environment Assembly, and gladly it was adopted in that assembly. Now, let me start the ball rolling, so to speak, by referring to some key points contributed by Professor Hiroki. In particular are the 4 key elements in mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda. If I may repeat this, you have a clear message, target, strategy, and symbolic action. However, except for Indonesia and Japan, and perhaps some other countries, there are countries where lakes are not even a priority in the national water agenda. I would like to ask the panelists on how the mainstreaming of lakes at the global level can be facilitated in this kind of situation where lakes are not yet at the priority of the discussion in terms of water in such countries. Anyone can start to keep the to discuss about this matter, or if there will be no show of hands, I would like to call on the key messenger of these key elements also. May I start with Sensei Hiroki, please? I think Sensei Hiroki is still in mute. Can you turn the microphone
I'm sorry.
of all the
I was
panelists?
just looking for appropriate slide for me to show you to explain, to answer your question. Actually, as you say that, there are many countries in which their lakes are not even a priority. And then, but the international process can help them to raise awareness among the countries. This is the one example. Can you see this slide? What did I?
Can you draw your?
Yes, I can make it.
Draw it up.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, this was one example which I was involved. In the year 2007, I helped the creation of the International Year of Sanitation. At that time, the sanitation wasn't a a major issue. But the UNSCA, UN Secretary General, the Advisory Board on Water and Sanitation, believe that the sanitation has to be in the top agenda of the global leaders and then countries. So at that time, I was not sure whether International Year of something can make changes. But eventually, I helped them to create in the United Nations General Assembly the resolution of the International Sanitation Year in 2008. Then what happened? This is the one slide. For example, the global World Hand Washing Day was established, and 2 billion children from 85 countries joined the event. World Water Monitoring Day was established. 70 countries joined the day. 1 million signatures were submitted to GA to call for collaboration for sanitation. Sustainable Sanitation 5-year drive was newly created. African Union Water Summit by 54 heads of the states and government of the region was held, and the sanitation ministerial conference was held in 5 countries in Africa, Latin America, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Middle East. 600 parliamentarians agreed to articulate access to sanitation as a human right in Constitution of the country of Nepal. Sanitation was positioned in National Development Plan of Afghanistan, Angola, and Cote d'Ivoire, and so forth. National budget for sanitation was sustainable increase in China, Kenya, Iraq, Vietnam, Nigeria, and so forth. Japan, Australia, UK, and others decided to include ODA on sanitation. For example, Australia includes sanitation ODA by 5 times. Japan contributed $300 million to have Commons new sanitation service for 6.5 million people. So this one single resolution of the International Sanitation Year 2008 made transformative changes in many countries and communities. So this is a sort of power that the international community can give impact to country. So although we understand that, lakes are not priority issues in many countries, one single agreement of the international community can make changes in countries. That is one way. So the international year of something, international day of something is not for up in the air, for the diplomats to decide and forgotten. This is for helping countries and communities to make changes on their own at the field level at every corner of the world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Hiroki, for that enlightening response and contribution. Anybody from the panel may want to add more to on this concern on how to mainstream lakes, or how countries can participate in the mainstreaming of lakes in the global water agenda, where in the situation in their particular country is not yet on that level of, even prioritizing lakes in the national agenda. Okay.
Let me contribute here, Nakamura. I think there are many entry points for these countries, and yet the facilitation has been very difficult. Of course, World Lake conferences and so on, they are all invited, but we may have limitations from these countries to be able to participate in getting benefits and then develop their national program, contribute in developing national programs. ILEC has regional scientific committees around the world. That's one way that around these hubs of activities, we can attract these interests and entry points to various sources of information, various activities. UN and other organizations internationally have their own activities, and they play a very much a mentor role in certain aspects. The UN have been working on lakes, but tendency have been that they work on flagship lakes, and that does not, address what Lenny was saying. We have been working with Nepal, we have been working on Ethiopia, we have been working on many countries where at the province level, at the district level, they have issues they have to deal with, but they have not been helped very well. National government, we have to help, but at the same time, individual lake level, community level, and these district and local government level, we have to have mechanisms. Definitely, we have to help these individual countries, but already there are sort of structures that has to be interlinked and facilitated with tools. Now, this post-COVID vision, we are definitely talking about communication tools like this webinar. We have much better chances of being able to provide for that kind of opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nakamura. And if we can, focus our attention to Indonesia, where I should really stress this and make it highlight this point that Indonesia was very successful in, having a presidential decree, meaning the president is really involved, a presidential decree on saving the priority lakes. And as we all know, there are different actors for sustainable lake management. And the government officials, the policymakers are very, very important actors in this sense. Perhaps Ibu Inge can give us some contribution or some points on how this came about, although we recognize that this may not happen in every country. It can happen in other countries depending on the situation. But I'd like to call on Ibu Inge to share with us on how the president was, directly involved by issuing a presidential decree on your priority lakes, because this has really set the tone for facilitating your action, why you championed sustainable lake management in the United Nations Environment Assembly. Inge, please.
Thank you. I would like to try to answer. Honestly, the main challenges in lake management is conflict of interest among sectors. So it is not an easy thing to have a concern of the president to the lake management. And day by day discussion, meeting with other sectors to give awareness, to have agreement on some points for lake management is a long year effort, and finally they can understand after maybe 3 years to develop to formulate the presidential decree. After we propose the importance of the lake management, importance to make sure that the priority lakes has to be conserved or rehabilitated, things like that. And it is finally agreed by the president. That's all, yeah. Honestly, it is not easy thing to face the conflict of interest among sectors. Even until now, we think we can develop policy and regulation. It is okay, we can develop, but it's not an easy thing also to implement, to execute the policy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Ibu Inge. And most of us, I'm sure, fully understand the situation, because at some point we also experience these challenges. But let me continue with that. I think it's in the also. It was also mentioned by Professor Hiroki that the involvement of politicians, of governors, mayors, and there was a mention also like what ILEC is doing and the Japanese government is doing on human resource development program, and this involves different sectors. But perhaps the international organizations and of course also ILEC can develop something really for politicians and policymakers on a specific program. And this will be a continuing process, because, for example, we know that politicians are elected, so they have time limit, so to speak, and there will be another set of politicians. So I'd like to get your insights on this, especially like UNEP, ILEC, and all the panelists on coming out really seriously with a human resource development program specific for our politicians and policymakers.
If I may.
Yeah, do I hear from Dr. Kawamata or Dr. Hiroki?
It's Kenzo.
Okay, yeah, please, sir.
Your point is very important, and then how to raise the awareness of the politicians. But that is normally done in a democratic world through the voting. So if the voters are aware that lakes are important for their lives and livelihoods, the politicians have to act. So then important thing is the message. The normal people do not have a direct connection to the lakes. But if they think about their water, and the water is coming from the lakes, they should be aware that water is important for themselves and for their lives. So we have to have a clear message that lakes are directly connected to the people's lives. And also, for example, some important challenges of climate change, for example, the lakes are important buffer or regulator of the water cycle. So that means if you are worried about climate change impact, then you have to think of improvement of the lake management as a pacifier of the climate change impact. So we can create a message that is understandable and directly related to the people's lives and livelihoods. And at the same time, lakes are not only the large lakes, but small lakes as their neighborhoods are quite important. If you talk to the general public of the lake, what the word lake reminds them is a lake nearest to them, rather than the big lakes like Lake Biwa. Of course, Lake Biwa is important for the Shiga people, but you have to relate the other lakes to other people. So our message is related to the smaller lakes and even ponds and water bodies are important to raise awareness of people. That will directly give the impact to the politicians. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Professor Hiroki. I think the key point is our message must be clear and understood by the sectors that we are, engaging. Now, I was particularly interested in the presentation of Dr. Kawamata and Dr. Hiroki. And this is something that really caught my attention. And I'm not sure if other countries are doing this already. And that highlight is Japan's trailblazing law, which is the Water Cycle Act. So, and there's a clear message from Dr. Hiroki that we must think and act within the water cycle, and we must mainstream lakes in the water cycle. May I request Dr. Nakamura to relate the experience in the Lake Biwa Yodo River Basin to the Water Cycle Act? I could imagine the volume of information that were used to operationalize the Water Cycle Act. Is there a guidebook where we could benefit from fully appreciating, understanding, and hopefully having that kind of model on, a water cycle? Everyone has to be aware of what happens to water at different stages. So please, Dr. Nakamura.
Yes, I am not quite sure if I am the right person to touch on this, but of course, Dr. Hiroki is also very much involved in this. I was part of the initiation of the development of legislation. Actually, the legislation was developed, the original draft was developed by the citizen groups. And it has come to a point where it's very much sort of a cross ministerial efforts. But overall, I think it's still in the making. There are some cases where the plan has been being implemented. But of course, you have you cannot be too idealistic to have the sustainable water cycle, negating some of the ongoing activities, which may not necessarily be all sort of healthy water cycle. So we have to continue to work on it. And it has, again, Dr. Hiroki said, it has to come from the bottom up. It has to come from the citizens, the stakeholders, and it has to pressure the politicians, pressure the governments, even to the extent of developing the concepts and the mobilizing these citizen groups to be able to realize what is best for the community, best for the people in the long run. And I think overall Japanese experience, particularly Dr. Kawamata, Mr. Kawamata may be able to, enlighten us, but many of the environmental registrations in Japan, the experience of the Japanese combating some of the environmental nuisances history, including Minamata, has been in that form. So we have very peculiar but important approaches that is being appreciated by the government and by the community. And that is a key point rather than directly going to the political arena. But I think informing and sharing the people as a society as a whole is really the first step.
Yeah, thank you for that very important contribution in this scheme of things on the water cycle and integrating lakes and rivers in so far as conservation and management is concerned. Now that the UN Environment Assembly has adopted this Sustainable Lake Management resolution, what happens next is how would the member countries implement it? And as mentioned by Ibu Inge, that of course Indonesia will sustain the action, and Indonesia will be collaborating closely with UNEP, with ILEC, and other international agencies, because as mentioned by Professor Hiroki, this international community could serve as a good catalyst for mainstreaming lakes also on the national level. Now, on this note, perhaps Walter, who's also with UNEP at some time, can add to this. And I remember in some of our discussions, like with Professor Nakamura, and also I would like to invite Dr. Kawamata in this discussion, is how to come out with a global effort so that this implementation of sustainable lake management can become a reality in countries where this is not yet maturing, or so to speak, is not yet very much in that level that we're aspiring, for example, in terms of integrated lake basin management. And if Patrick is still around, Patrick, who represents UNEP, can also join in this discussion and can give some of his insights on, the need for a global movement on this, so that we can all work together on the implementation of sustainable lake management. Yeah, Walter, would you like to start?
Oh, good. Is it on? Yes. I've got about 35 questions since we started talking. I'm wondering, and I'm not trying to pick on Dr. Hiroki, a couple of things I'd like to ask, because you indicated that, what was it, the decade of sanitation translated into regional actions with some billions of children washing their hands and 70 countries involved, and then somehow it worked its way down to the national level. And I was kind of curious, because addressing some of these problems, particularly on the national level, seems to me, if they're not being addressed, it requires some combination of awareness, communication, and education. So I'm wondering, you had that nice diagram which showed the transition from the global to the national level. Do you see this as naturally happening, or does it require that we have things like political will and institutional vigor and so forth to make it happen? Or if we had a world lake year or something, would it be much easier then to translate this down to the lower levels, getting down to the ground level, as Professor Nakamura mentioned? Or would we have to I don't know, bring some sort of pressure or enticements to make it happen? In other words, is it automatic, or how do you get governments to agree to this simply by declaring a national any kind of day or year?
Very interesting question. And probably in the case of the sanitation year, there was already needs to do something at the field level. And just international sanitation ignited that, desire of the people and the practitioners and stakeholders there to do something for sanitation. So the needs was from there, but without that something like International Year of Sanitation, those actions could not spread out. And the same thing is for SDGs. If you get on the subway of if you get on the subway of Tokyo metropolitan area, you may be surprised to see the badges of the SDGs worn by many, commuters who are, ordinary citizens. And I was wondering how those numbers and millions of people are involved with the, SDG actions. But it seems at least in Japan, SDG is a fuzz, very popular. So this is one function of the organization like the United Nations. The United Nations is a body that makes something ideal visible. That function has to be recognized by the country leaders. And then we can encourage the leaders to make use of them for the benefit of the public. Look, this is, something good for your people. And this is what UN is advocating as the opportunity for countries to start something. This is very important. But at the same time, the country leaders have to do their homework. They have to create a framework to transform the behavior of the general public by, for example, the Water Cycle Act of Japan. That was not created by the government, but that was created by the parliamentarians from the opposition parties to the ruling parties. So this is by the unanimous decision of the parliament. Then what happened was that also this Water Cycle Act is just for the presenting ideal situation of the water management to the countries. A good thing is that the government apparatus was used to spread out the messages to the people in the ground. So I was put in the position of creating a master plan of the act, and then decided to create the basin water cycle plan based on the national water cycle plan. So the community people, together with the municipalities, started action to create one basin water cycle plan based on the national plan. And then that good thing is that the variety of the plans were created. One community focused on the groundwater, the other on the lakes, the other on the water quality, or the other on the paddy field. So this created a diverse mixture of the variety of the plants to manage water cycle in their own field and communities. So if you can take a hint, or if the countries or the country leaders can take a hint from those examples, that would be a great thing to see. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much to our esteemed members of the panel. I hope we could have more time, but just before we have to close this, of course, because of the interest of time. It just strikes me, Dr. Kawamata, on this lake-specific water quality standard for lakes, and we've been struggling in some countries, like even in the Philippines, on lake-specific water quality standards. So I know that we don't have much time to discuss this, but I'm flagging this, and surely we will have the opportunity to discuss again. And we would be glad if Japan can share with us their experience on, having this lake-specific water quality standards. So as I said, in the interest of time, we have to conclude our panel discussion. But that is just for today's webinar. Definitely, we will sustain our actions and come out with more concrete steps in the mainstream of lakes and sustainable lake management in the national and global water agenda. The presentations and the discussion range from the national scale to the global scale, and they're like fertilizers that stimulates our minds in thinking about the major steps and in taking the necessary actions, some of which are already being initiated in some lake basins. Well, at the same time, we realize the challenges that lie ahead and the things that needs to be done, but we are not starting from scratch. We have heard from our panelists on various efforts, and as I said, we have brilliant minds that continually work together to attain this sustainable lake management. But before I end, taking off again from what Dr. Hiroki mentioned, that our message has to be clear, and we need to identify the appropriate actors, capacitate those actors, and develop the strategies on how they can be involved. So with that, I'm concluding our panel discussion, and may I request Dr. Takimoto to give a summary of the webinar. Dr. Takimoto, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Lenny. It is a big challenge for me to summarize or wrap up such a rich and deep discussions. I have been fully enlightened through this panel. At this moment, I would like to pick up some my own the observation to share with you to move forward. Let me pick up several major points in my mind before concluding this panel session. First, this is the very big timing moment to move forward, because I recall 3.5 years ago in Tsukuba, we had the World Lake Conference. Before that, we organized a colloquium by asking some world leading experts, including SciComm members. We discussed how we can make up the legitimacy of the mainstreaming lake issues into global agenda. Now, this year, remarkably, at the UNEP-ILEC, we have concluded on the resolution, UN resolution, with the unanimous support from the member states. That is a big step, and now it is time for us to move forward into the implementation phase. That is a big momentum, and also the moment for future steps. Couple of things to raise have been raised, and one point is the lakes and lentic waters. The sort of the missing link with the global agenda, instead of the critical values and the roles, and this has to be addressed in the near future, must be as Professor Hiroki touched on, as the target phase. At the same time, the public awareness also it is very important to push our movement And one of the symbolic actions, World Lake Day or World Lake Year, whatever, that should be addressed in your future. In this moment, priority should be upgraded by making full use of every existing opportunities, including the mobilization of political figures as well, as we discussed. At the same time, the knowledge base is very important and crucial. ILEC has to work on this point together with our colleagues or friends around the world. Finally, the part of my conclusion, the timely bound, once again, UNEA 5.2 resolution is the big step as the starting point for the future step. Today, we had a lot of the discussion to move forward. Of course, it is very hard to solve these problem or issues at the one time, but we have to continue this discussion to keep our momentum. And I would like to share with you. First, this year, ILEC is going to have a scientific committee meeting in Shiga Prefecture in October. We would like to make full use of this opportunity to further expand our discussion toward the next year World Lake Conference, which will be held in Hungary next year, October. And that is the milestone, by making full use of our big decision at the UNEA 5.2, then we would like to keep momentum. At the same time, we have to step up this momentum, SciComm meeting in October, as well as the conference next year and beyond. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks for all the panelists. At the same time, all the participating audience, which will be the great value for our discussions. At the same time, ILEC is fully committed to continue our effort to make it possible. Thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takemoto, for your very comprehensive summary and for sharing some of the steps that will be undertaken after this webinar. Dear honorable speakers and guests, thank you very much for your valuable participation today. And let's take a group photo. ILEC will be facilitating this group photo. Please make sure that your camera is on. Okay. Now, well, please look at the camera and smile. Are you ready? ILEC Secretariat, are you ready? Let me do the count. 1, 2, 3, smile. How is it, ILEC Secretariat? Is it all right now? Okay, so I didn't hear anything like repeating the session, the photo session, so I assume everything went well. And now, may I hand over the program of this webinar to Ms. Rika Okaji. Rika, please.
Lenny, I also want to say thank you for being a moderator. It's not an easy job, and you did great.
Yeah, you're very good stimulus. It's because of the panelists that makes my my task very interesting. So thank you very much to all the panelists. So Rika, please.
Thank you very much, Lenny. Thank you very much, all panelists, and thank you to the audience for listening to our webinar. We received many comments and questions from the audience. We really appreciate for your active participation. We will answer the question on our website at the later date. And as Dr. Takemoto mentioned earlier, ILEC will be holding a cycle meeting and international symposium in October, located on the shores of Lake Biwa in Shiga Prefecture, Japan. What we talk about today is heavily related to what we'll be discussing at the meeting and the symposium. It's going to be an on-site, online, hybrid style. Please stay tuned for updates on our website. This concludes our webinar. Please leave the room by selecting the leave button. Thank you very much once again.